Transparent reporting is absolutely key to equitable representation in the modern workplace. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to unpack exactly how the advertising and marketing industry quantifies and reports on workforce diversity. Today, we're looking at how to calculate employee gender and diversity group representations under the SASB framework. We'll also be exploring how leading agencies disclose their global programs for things like equitable hiring, mentorship, promotion, and management accountability.
So, let's dive right into this specific metric, SV-AD-330a. In the advertising world, getting a competitive advantage really comes down to producing the most creative, innovative ideas. And to do that, well, you absolutely need diverse creative voices. This standard gives us a very precise framework to see how we quantify these vital inclusion efforts on a truly global scale.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, the need for transparency. Second, measuring global representation. Third, the 4 key employee categories. Fourth, calculating equitable representation. And finally, disclosing equitable programs.
Let's start with Section 1, measuring global representation under standard SV-AD-330a.1.
Now, you might be wondering how the standard actually defines diversity. It's actually defined quite broadly, capturing things like race, ethnicity, age, migrant status, and socioeconomic background. But here's a really fascinating, kind of counterintuitive twist. Standardizing this global data is incredibly hard. Why? Because in some countries, like France, for example, collecting certain demographic data is actually prohibited by local privacy laws. So the standard allows companies to define these groups based on their local jurisdictional laws, and they can even omit this data entirely if collecting it poses legal risks or any harm to their employees.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 4 key employee categories and structuring the workforce. To make sense of all this data, it really helps to visualize the workforce breakdown as a clear 2x2 grid. The standard mandates 4 distinct categories here: executive management, non-executive management, professionals, and all other employees. This neatly categorizes every single employee, from the top executive steering the ship right down to all other staff members. It's all about ensuring total transparency at every single level of the corporate hierarchy.
Let's look at the top half of that grid first. The crucial distinction here is scope. Executive management includes your chief executives and senior officials, the people who formulate overall policies and direct the entire entity. If you're someone who likes getting into the technical details, you can actually align this directly with the International Standard Classification of Occupations, or ISCO, Submajor Group 11. On the flip side of that, non-executive management includes the folks who plan and direct specific organizational units within that overarching entity.
Down on the bottom half of our grid, the professionals category captures your highly skilled or highly qualified workers. In advertising, these are the folks doing the heavy lifting in finance, legal, sales, marketing, public relations, and IT. And finally, all other employees basically rounds out the remaining workforce, capturing absolutely everyone who doesn't fit into those first 3 management or professional roles.
All right, Section 3, calculating equitable representation, or the math behind the metrics.
The math here is incredibly straightforward, but it's super powerful. Step 1, you identify the number of people in a specific gender or diversity group. Step 2, you simply divide that number by the total headcount of that specific quadrant in our grid. So notice that you aren't just dividing by the total company headcount, right? You are dividing by the total number of employees in that respective employee category. When it all comes together, this is exactly how the final disclosure should look based on SASB's recommended formats. You've got one table for gender representation and one for diversity group representation, broken down across our 4 key employee levels. Notice those columns on the right for not disclosed or not available. That's important. The standard explicitly requires companies to categorize gender as women, men, or not disclosed, though companies are absolutely welcome to disclose additional categories of gender identity if they choose to.
If we zoom in on the top left of our grid, looking at the executive management level, you can see how the gender split might populate into some really clear, beautifully rendered pie charts. Again, it is so vital to include that not disclosed category. It ensures the math always adds up to 100% of the executives, even if some individuals choose to keep their personal data private. Shifting over to the top right quadrant, we get a visual demographic footprint of the non-executive managers. Remember, these are the leaders running the daily operations and specific business units. Tracking diversity here is absolutely essential because it shows you the real pipeline of talent, the people who are positioned to eventually move up into those top executive roles.
Down in the bottom left, this charts the gender representation for those highly skilled professionals. These are your marketing and PR experts.
the actual people on the ground creating the advertising campaigns and directly managing the brand messaging day in and day out.
And finally, that bottom right quadrant shows the rich diversity group representation, encompassing the rest of the global workforce. Here we might see data representing a huge array of backgrounds, whether that's region of origin, age variations, or socioeconomic statuses, really capturing the full global spectrum of the entity's footprint.
Which brings us to Section 4, disclosing equitable programs, going beyond the numbers.
Because here's the thing, numbers literally only tell half the story. The crucial point is that the SASB standard doesn't just want raw data, it actually mandates the qualitative disclosure of the policies that drive equitable representation in the first place. Agencies have to describe their real-world programs. We're talking about transparency in hiring, promotion, and wage practices. It means actively developing diversity training, building robust mentorship and sponsorship programs, partnering with employee resource groups, and even offering flexible work schedules to accommodate the very real, varying needs of their workforce.
There's a quote directly from the standard that just hits the nail on the head and perfectly summarizes why this matters so deeply to investors and stakeholders. Listen to this. An advertising agency's financial performance and creative output rely completely on understanding their audience. Connecting with a target market means employing a workforce that authentically mirrors the communities within that market. It's just a critical factor in improving overall service outcomes.
So, as you analyze this SASB metric within the advertising and marketing sector, you really have to ask yourself, is the workforce reporting you're looking at just a box-ticking compliance exercise, or does it demonstrate a true, equitable reflection of the diverse communities these campaigns actually need to connect with? Understanding the math and the policies behind standard SV-AD-330a.1 gives you the exact tools you need to find out. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, keep asking the right questions.